Checking out the Opie and Anthony show. Hold on, wait. You're checking out the Opie and Anthony show. Oh yeah, it's just another day in paradise here at Sirius XM, where the big wigs, the execs, in their infinite wisdom, have made another decision in the world of radio, and they don't know radio.
Get this through your head, you motherfucker, you won't be out of because of me.
I mean, I've only been doing this since I was, 18 years old. Maybe I might know a thing or two about the business. Maybe these people might want to ask somebody who's done a little bit of radio. Little bit. Done a little bit of radio in my time.
What happened?
But they think they know best. That's right, Ant. I've been fired from Sirius XM.
You fucking want, don't ever go over my fucking head again.
Yeah, dude. Opie,
What happened, Ope?
Finally, the whole thing, man. A lot of us have been fans of Opie and Anthony for years. I was a latecomer. I was only probably a fan for about 2 years before Anthony got fired, and I only listen on YouTube and places that you could get it for free and shit. I had the satellite thing years before that and kind of dipped in and out of the show a little bit, but I didn't become a true fan till really only a few years ago. And but for a lot of us, it's been quite the saga. It's been there's been a few things in my life that I've been as interested in as the Opie and Anthony show for whatever reason. As big as a fucking faggot as I am for that whole thing, you know what I mean? For wanting to know what happened between an argument between a producer and a fucking intern, you know what I mean? Or all the shit somehow.
Funny when I stopped caring about all celebrities or anything, I started caring about O&A.
Well, it's escapism. A lot of it is you just get into that world of their world and you go, you know what? Fuck that. Derek is better than fucking Troy behind the fucking board. And you're sitting there at home just listening to these YouTube clips from years ago of art. Somehow they would suck you into it. So we're fans. I'm a fan. Huge fan. I'm
a big fan. You introduced me.
Yeah, and it's been a giant soap opera that's almost embarrassing how much, and I think a lot of the fans of Opie and Anthony could identify with this. It's embarrassing how much you kind of care about it. Oh, it's not real life. It doesn't, it's not like making your rent or fucking dealing with your bullshit in your life. It's not that fucking important, but it's the number one thing when you go to take a shit and you need something to hear. And you go, okay, let me see what the fuck is happening with holy shit. Opie, Opie and Jim are talking shit about each other. You know what I'm saying? There's very few, I'm not that into video games or sports or anything, and there's very few things in my life in the past 5 years that I get more excited about than when I see a video pop up that goes, Opie versus Anthony fight, walking on Greg shells. Human garbage. Opie tells Jim we're not friends, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe he said that. You know what I mean? I'm an asshole. I'm a little fucking jerk off, just fucking paying attention to these fucking guys' lives. And it's weird to be that big of a fan of something, but I'll fully admit when I am. There's very few things that I'm like that with, where it's it's just I'm all in. I want to know. You hooked me. I'm in.
Exactly. I'm all in. I use most of their old clips on YouTube to get through shitty jobs I had. Yeah. And it was really a fucking great thing.
And I think that's where their rabid fan base stems from, is they created such a fucking weird little universe that you could so invest in for some reason, And they rode this level of a lot of complaints that they had over the years was you guys talk like everybody knows all your inside jokes and blah, blah, blah. But I got to say, coming to it really late, hearing all of that shit and how people reacted to it and how it was funny only made me want to listen to more. And eventually, after about 6 months, I knew fucking everything. I knew every inside joke, every little linger longer thing that was going on. You know what I mean? Like, and they rode that perfect level of like, we'll hook new people in with hilarious content and controversial shit. They were always in the press, blah blah blah, doing all that shit, and also we're gonna have this longevity. We're gonna make you invest in our personalities to the point that you need to know all of this little shit that we're doing that's insider and blah blah. You know what I mean? Right. They rode this. They really rode this fine line of like really being interesting to a newcomer and then being rewarding to a longtime listener. So whatever, enough fucking gushing, right? The whole point of this is that eventually Opie is the last one. Well, no, Jim Norton is still on, right. Whatever. But Anthony got fired a couple years ago, as everybody knows, and now finally Opie gets fired for supposedly the whole thing has to do with him filming Roland, who is a talent booker, around Sirius XM in the bathroom while he was taking a shit. And I guess he filmed him. It was a big joke. They were all laughing about it. And then somehow Roland got pissed off and went to Human Resources. And that was kind
silly,
of it.
Silly Vinny. Haven't you been reading the internet, though? There's much more to it.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, but of course there is. Like, Opie's from that old school. Here's the problem with Opie. Besides being kind of a talentless douche, and that's the other funny thing. Like, if you don't know Opie and Anthony, it might seem weird to you, but most Opie and Anthony fans hate Opie. You know, that's just kind of part of it. Like,
and whether you were an O&A fan from the start or you found them years after. I mean, I started listening to him the year Anthony got fired, so. And I hate Opie.
But there's never been, and as terrible as some of it is, like, there's nothing else like it. There's no other show. It's just like once you're exposed,
once you're hooked,
and once you're exposed to that level of like honesty and chaos, there's no other fucking show that I've ever found that can substitute for it, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very strange, you know. And I'm fully admitting as to what a fanboy I am. You know, it's just I can't. I mean. Once you're exposed to that kind of reality in broadcasting, and as shitty of a person as Opie is, and as talentless and unfunny, and as much of a roadblock as he was a lot of the time, you know, he did have an eye for what would work and what was controversial. And what, you know what I mean? He did a lot like for that show getting off the ground, because it could have been.
He's been doing it since he was 18.
Of course. Yeah, right. But no, really though, you know, and I know this is like a lot of people hate Opie and this is like the apologist stance and whatever, but you know, it honestly could have been a thing where Anthony was this immensely talented guy. Who did a few years in radio, didn't work out. The show got canceled. Both of them went off the rails and didn't do. You know what I mean? Like Opie was what gave that show longevity. He really was in a business sense, because it easily could have been. Early Anthony was not that fucking funny, honestly. Like if you listen to Opie and Anthony before 2009, it really wasn't that funny, dude. You know, and you listen to it now, it's cringy. It's fucking, it's real hacky, corny shit. You know what I mean? So it could have been that. That could have been it. But I really do think Opie was the business kind of, you know, mind behind everything. And fine, whatever. That's where it is. He was terrible on the air. The Nopey show. The shows where. Sorry, I was just gonna say the shows where he wasn't there. The Nopies are like a huge thing on YouTube that people love and some of the best shows ever. But sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, he wasn't that great, but I was gonna say he might be one of the reasons that O&A is as big of a brand as it is, because he really did it.
I mean, as much of a genius as Anthony was, and also let's be honest about this. Since Anthony got fired, you know, I'm one of the biggest fans ever Dude, I can't really watch Compound Media that much. There's some of the clips that I thought were really hilarious, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm not watching it because it's really fucking it's like repetitive, boring. It's like hyper political to the point that I can handle a lot of politics, and it's hyper political to the point that it's just nauseating. It's just like, okay, we get it, Muslims and Democrats, and okay, and I fucking hate Democrats. That's the thing.
The only people that kept their show are the ones that didn't go political. Fucking Jim and Sam.
Yeah, but I don't know that Opie's not some kind of like political mind either. And his new show was garbage. I mean, he hires a catering chef. And Sherrod, I never heard of fucking Sherrod Small my entire fucking life until he's some guy you're supposed to have heard of before. And it's just everything, and they're all yelling the entire time. Every time anybody says, yeah, yeah, oh yeah, Sherrod, do the dance, Sherrod, do the dance. Dude, it's just obnoxious. I mean, it was Zoo Crew bullshit, and it really was, and I don't know what else you would expect. I guess that's what Opie does on his own. He got so fucking lucky. I mean, it really is like a Beatles situation, not to be overly dramatic, but like, elements of the Beatles, like Ringo, the luckiest person who's ever lived on the face of the fucking planet, you know what I mean? Like, he was just the guy in the place to provide the right, it wasn't something that a lot of drummers couldn't have done, and it wasn't something that was all that unique or innovative. The rest of the band worked around him and kind of used him as a simple little addition, but like that's how I kind of look at Opie, is like, it's just it is what it is. He was there, he fucking figured it out. I think he might have been a necessary cog in the gear. I think it wouldn't have worked without him, because I'm trying to think of other radio guys that are like, if you think of any radio guy, O&A set my standards so high, even Opie or Anthony, dude, by themselves, they couldn't. After you've listened to all the Jocktobers, and you're like, oh, dude, you're like, yeah, man, because if you're somebody that, like me, who I never gave a whole lot of thought to AM radio, you know what I mean? Before I started listening to like Alex Jones and people back in the day that were like sort of on the underground side but had AM radio shows. I never really thought about it much, but then I knew it was all bullshit. And then after listening to O&A, it was like, these people are fucking hack clowns. They're nobodies. They're absolute talentless fucking abominations. All of them. Well, yeah, and then it's Opie's like, yeah, these actually, they have people come in and they have the same bits for every city. Dude, if you listen to any, I'm like, and then I started realizing all this shit. Right, and what they did for just the awareness of talk radio and podcasting and all that shit, like, they left a legacy of making it really hard for people to get away with bullshit, or whatever, harder, I guess, than it would have been without them. And and this brings up another point, because that was back in the days where there still was a such thing as popular radio. You know what I mean? And there really isn't anymore. We've come in the past, I'd say like the past 2 years have been huge for when was the last time you heard about fucking Howard Stern or Rush Limbaugh or Michael Savage? Or but when was the last time Tom Hartman or any of these people? When was the last time you heard about Joe Rogan? Like, I think it's shifting where it's podcasts now. You still hear about Joe Rogan, although he's lost a lot of his fan base, but we can't get off into that. Sure, but I'm just saying, I think there's a major shift going on for sure. Yeah, but a lot of what they did, what my original point was, a lot of what O&A did in their heyday was in this transition period where there was this thing called mainstream radio that had a huge audience, and they were just in this, they were just across the they were like just through the portal, you know, by a few inches, and these other shows weren't. They were just through that like portal to the future, and the other shows weren't, and they were like reaching back and going, look at this fucking bullshit. Isn't it obvious how stupid this is from over here? And you were going, oh man, I'll step over there with you guys. Hell yeah, that shit's fucking garbage. Look at that shit. And it seemed, and then it was like, what, you know, it really made you think, like, how stupid is this fucking country that this is what passes for entertainment? You know what I mean? So once you've seen all of that shit and been exposed to all of that shit, and then they continued it into the modern era, and, you know, they would fucking, when Billy Crystal did like a fucking way outdated act at the Oscars and shit, they'd be like, who is this for? He's like mimicking, you know, old musicals and shit, and blah, blah. You know what I mean? They kept that going and ridiculing. They even fucking busted George Carlin's balls a whole bunch when George Carlin came out in like 2008 doing like a beat poetry, you know, like a beat poet thing of like, I'm a rude dude with an attitude and blah, blah. And he did that whole thing, you know, and they were, they made fun of him for that, even though Carlin was fucking obviously, you know, comedic royalty,
a legend, and when he was on the show they treated him like a legend.
So my whole point is, after you've been exposed to that level of realness, like where do you go? What else do you listen to? And even Opie's show, I listened to a whole bunch. When Opie and Jim started doing their show, I kept listening to it because it's like, no, it's not great, but for real, what else do you fucking, what do you go listen to Adam Carolla, who fucking is a bloviating fucking faggot, just repetitive old man full of shit, dude. He fucking sucks ass.
You can listen to Bill Burr's podcast, but you're gonna go off on a 30-minute diatribe about sports.
Yeah, what am I gonna listen to Bill Burr talk about, like, you know, do like a half an hour on him and his wife arguing about laundry and then talk about quarterbacks? Like, fuck that, dude. I'm not listening to that shit. Even though I like Bill Burr overall.
Love it.
But, like, that podcast is fucking just boring drivel, dude. It sucks. It sucks ass. When I listen to fucking, you know, Nick DiPaolo just have an average, boring, right-wing talking point, you know, every day. You know, this is the thing. They've destroyed every other talk for me. There's nothing like bringing on Sandy Kane and Bobo.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, who else is gonna do this shit, dude? And then 2 weeks later, having like a really in-depth, honest racial discussion. Some of the racial discussions I used to hear on O&A are the most honest, productive, real racial discussions you will ever fucking hear, dude. Ever.
And that's kind of what bringing me to a point I wanted to make, which was people that the show introduced me to. And one person who's been so influential for me was Patrice O'Neal.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean,
who doesn't love? Everybody loves fucking Patrice O'Neal. Yeah.
Who does? Yeah, no. Anyone who's ever heard Patrice O'Neal loves him. Every O&A fan loves him. I don't really know what you can say besides that.
No, you'll get into Patrice O'Neal to the point that, like, your girlfriend will just, anytime you say anything, this is what my girlfriend says, oh, have you been listening to Patrice O'Neal so you think you can fucking, you know, put me in my place? And I'm like, no, bitch. I like Patrice O'Neal because he thinks exactly like me, you motherfucker. I didn't fucking learn this shit from him. Asshole. Anyways, sorry. That is one thing that I did take away from Patrice, though, is call your girlfriend, like, man insults, like prick, an asshole. And shit, you know? Instead of, you don't call her a bitch or a cunt. You say, you're being a fucking prick, you fucking asshole. It's way more satisfying. It really is. But yeah, Patrice, man, it's funny. And then his whole thing extended into you know, the many hours of stand-up that he has, and also doing all kinds of interviews. He was one of those people that I love.
He had the Black Phillip show that they gave him on Sirius.
Yeah, the Black Phillip show was cool. And also, but one of the other things about just, like, contrasting O&A with other shows, you hear Patrice on O&A and you get used to that style of him. And then I would search out, there's all kinds of stuff on YouTube of him on other AM radio shows and stuff. And it's just complete chaos because they don't know what to fucking do with him. And like
No,
every
yeah.
time he's on another radio show, he's running over everybody. He's steamrolling everybody. Just completely controlling the situation, and they're just what?
Exactly.
Well,
Nobody could handle him.
so,
but Owen.
what movies are you? And he's just like, hey, what the fuck are you talking about, bitch? Come here.
Ask me about
just
movies.
like, yeah, just like, and it's just complete chaos. They have no fucking clue how to handle him. So you get used to hearing him on O&A, and this is one of those things. Louis C.K. did there's like 150 fucking episodes of O&A with Louis C.K. just chilling. That was actually, do you know that's how I found out about O&A? Was Louis C.K. I had watched all of his shit and all of his interviews and all that bullshit, and I was just looking for fucking new Louis C.K. content, and I saw that he was on this fucking talk show. I was like, oh yeah, dude, I remember that talk show from back in the day on satellite. I haven't thought about them in years. So I listened to all the Louis C.K.'s, and I was like, God damn, those are over, but I kind of like that show. What else?
Yep.
What else is there? That was how it started. So if you're a Louis C.K. fan, I'm talking 300 hours of him chilling and just riffing with people. It's fucking, dude. Who else could have provided that in our lifetime? Besides,
Are you a lizard?
yeah, him asking Donald Rumsfeld if he's a lizard. Come on, dude.
I think that was the first O&A clip you showed me, and I was hooked.
Yeah. I mean, so this is all the shit. I guess we're supposed to be talking about Opie getting fired, but what do you say? I mean, he's fired. It's over. Now, Jim Norton and Sam Roberts have their show, which is what it is. It's all right. I loved it at first. Remember at first it was really funny? And
really great.
And then it slowly kind of, I don't know, it just is losing steam.
Here's what I'll tell you about. It's a lot better on YouTube visually than it is to listen to, because they got me to buy a Sirius subscription. I got like a 6-month thing, and I'm not gonna renew at all
because the YouTube clips are better.
They're 100% better for Jim and Sam, and then I mean the radio bits were better for Opie. His whatever he puts on YouTube isn't that good, but he would consistently put out a radio show. He was trying to do a radio show, right. And I gave it a chance.
Yeah, even though it sucked ass.
But it's Jim and Sam. They're already beyond that, where they realize this is kind of dead, this medium, and they, the live YouTube videos, stuff like that. That's much better for their fan base.
Yeah, and I think honestly, so let's talk about this. So a bunch of the discussion has turned to like, what could Opie do? Because going back to what I was saying before, he's from the old school of like, to be honest, it wasn't as much back then about talent. It was more about putting in the work, showing the people that that you have face-to-face time with. You show this guy, you meet it. You show this guy, you meet it. You show up early, you do this. Yeah, he did all of that conventional shit. And then he had a conventional job. And then over the years, he complained. He's making millions of dollars and complaining about this and complaining about that. And it's like, I understand, man. Those guys have a point when the company is making as much as they are on advertising. And the talent is seeing a fraction of that. I get the point of that, but still, he's from that old school of just like, no, I deserve this. This is who I am. I put the work in. I deserve this. And a million podcasts and a million other little shows popped up that are way more entertaining than him, by himself, and way more intelligent, right? Way more relevant, way more funny. Anything you could think of. And he just never caught up to the idea that he's fucking lucky that he bridged that gap from the old school to the new school, and he somehow hung on for as long as he did. So now that he's finally fucking fired because they were paying him way more than he was worth, and he wasn't bringing in new listeners, and he wasn't putting on a really entertaining show. I think that's pretty universally agreed upon by the old O&A crowd.
Yeah.
What is he gonna do? Is he gonna go back to AM radio? How hilarious would that be?
Well, that's what all the hot YouTubers are saying.
Because he's not gonna do what kind of podcast could he do?
Yeah, I could see him doing something with those guys.
His
on
whole
the show.
thing is, hey, here we are. What's up today? You know, what's in the news today? What's going on?
Yeah.
Hey, who's fighting in the other room? Can we get
Bring the funny. Bring the funny.
Can we get Roland in here? I heard Roland and Sal were having a problem earlier today. Let's get them in here. And it's like, dude, those days are over. Nobody listens to fucking daily stupid radio that happens in a studio. It's like, you know, I like the live aspect, and we do our show live and unedited for that reason, because I like that aspect of it. It has a different energy. It's fun. But, like, nobody wants to hear your staff argue. Nobody wants to fucking sit around and listen to you throw things and poker chips at people and stomp on fucking homeless people's cakes because you think you're edgy. What are you going to do? What the fuck is he going to do? You know what I mean?
I really don't know. It's been kind of like the biggest mystery in O&A history.
But he's so rich. He doesn't this is what I wonder. Why would he do dude, if I was him, I would fucking chill, dude. I would not do shit. Why?
I'd walk off right now.
Or if he wants to pick a topic and do a podcast on something he's interested in and not give a shit how well it does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he might do something like that.
Maybe. Why not? You got $20-30 million in the bank? What the fuck, dude? Who gives a shit?
I don't know.
So what? So that's my point, though. He'll probably get like a fucking AM radio job just because of his name. And
I don't think
he's quickly approaching Scott Shannonville. That's the funny thing. You know, eventually he's gonna be that guy.
Yeah, I think he already is.
You don't. I mean, it is gonna be there one of these days soon. Him just you know, trying to justify his existence and throwing out shitty, like, he's got about as much talent as Scott Shannon. That's the funny thing. They used to make fun of him. You know, Opie is younger, you know, and he was more relevant for a time.
Yeah.
But is he more talented than that?
He looks he could become Scott Shannon.
Oh, dude. And then he's just gotten weird with blaming everybody else for all his problems all the time, and Jim and Sam backstabbed him.
Well, yeah,
and all that shit.
That's the weirdest part to me, is that he was never grown up about any of it.
Yeah, you never got the feeling that he was sort of had any self-awareness, and even as like a passive listener, you after the Walking on Greg Shells video that Anthony did, that, having not known the show for too long, like I said, once I heard that and I went back and listened to a lot of the old shit again, I definitely heard it differently, where Opie was always the source of like some egotistical tension that was going on, you know?
Yeah, because Anthony broke the fourth wall. It was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you went back and listened, and you could always hear how careful they all were around him.
Yeah.
And like even the other comics that would be in, they'd take a shot at him and he'd be like, hey, what the fuck? I let you come in here. And they'd go, oh, I'm sorry. You know, it was real. It didn't flow like when they would make fun of each other and shit, and they'd all laugh and shit would flow, and then it would come around to Opie. And then eventually, as the years went on, if you notice, the last like 5 or 6 years they were on, nobody ever made fun of Opie. Ever.
Well, one of Anthony's guys this week, he was on a podcast, Louis J. Gomez. He was on the Chip Chipperson podcast, and he alluded to the fact that Opie didn't want him on the show, and kind of he was told by a lot of other people involved in the business that you can't make fun of Opie if you're going to be on Sirius.
Yeah.
And if you do, then you're not going to get booked anymore.
And again, I should say, before you guys go in the comments and go, oh, you guys have you're not even getting paid and you're not working in this industry, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, yeah, we're fully acknowledging that. We're literally doing this for other fans. Just because when we looked on YouTube earlier, The only other person talking about this was a fucking fat-tongued retard with a lisp, just fucking droning on and on about shit he had no clue about. And it literally was. It was almost like Bobo did a fucking podcast. It was a little bit better than that. What was that guy's name? Saiyan?
Saiyan Z Rage. I know that because that's a Dragon Ball Z thing. I just realized that.
Saiyan Z Rage. Yeah, that fucking idiot. So, honestly, that was why we did this, because we looked on YouTube, we're like, oh, this fucking retard got 3,500 views talking about this? What the fuck, dude? We know about it. Why not? So fully acknowledging we're just a couple of fanboys who really do a fucking podcast bare bones on YouTube here. Whatever. Fuck you. I don't care. We're talking about it.
And I'm punching out.
Are you?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that was enough. Fuck it. Thank you guys for listening. Overdose Talk Show. Subscribe. We do a lot of shit you probably won't really like, but our show, like Opie and Anthony, is somewhat personality driven. So if you dug this, you might want to go check out our further uploads, past uploads.
If you dug this, you might dig that, my dude.
Stick around, my dude. All right, bye.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers.
Jesus. No, we do actually have our own personalities, too.
Fuck yeah, cut that butt out.
No, I swear to God, we actually do have... We actually are creative and original on our own. I swear to God. We just wouldn't have been doing this without them.
We're so influenced by them.
Yeah.
But this is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. All right, good night.